because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
I don't know how the Democrats came to appoint Jasmine Crockett as the unquestioned leader of your party, but thank God. And I think what she should do is go on TV twice as much as she is right now, maybe 3 times as much, because every time she appears and makes one of these mistakes, says something radical, it only further divides her party from the rest of the other 80% of America who can't stand this. But the problem is there's an audience for it. I heard Jimmy Kimmel's audience cheering on Tesla vandalism. I hear the Daily Show audience cheering on attacks on Elon Musk. I hear the human rights audience cheering on an attack on a man in a wheelchair. And I realize this is what the left has become, an angry mob of people who are cheering on attacks on a guy in a wheelchair and vandalism against people who bought a Tesla. It's pathetic. No lesson could ever be learned as long as you're doing these things in front of audiences who roar when you do it. When you have comedians who are broad messengers for the left making unfair jokes and people are roaring. When you have politicians being vulgar and saying what's the lesson? What's the audience? It says a lot about the audience.
Question of the day. Do you think anyone regrets in Texas voting for Jasmine Crockett? Because, Jasmine Crockett, she was a nice girl when she first came into office. Woman, sorry. A reminder that this is all an act. She did not grow up in the hood. She went to the most expensive private school in St. Louis. This is how you speak before deciding to change her personality for political gain.
Congress. This is not what my plan was. But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need. Listen, he up there, he's doing.
So I don't understand what Jasmine Crockett is going with all this. But honestly, I think there's an incentive structure, as you saw from the intro. Scott Jennings pointed out the incentive structure from many people on the left is that they get praised for doing stuff like this, right? And it's not helping the party whatsoever. They like to call, the Republicans are party of oligarchies, but then you bring out the fact that Democrats raised more money. Most of Wall Street, 90% of Wall Street donated to the Democratic Party. When you bring up that the 9 most expensive counties in all of the United States of America overwhelmingly vote Democrat, it's hard to really make this argument that the left is somehow fighting the oligarchy. It seems like the left, with their Tesla attacks, their Tesla vandalisms, bombs being found in Tesla dealerships, it seemed like these leftists, these progressives, these protesters are the mob that the oligarchy used to control everyone else. And this is the hypocrisy of the left, right? But, I digress. I want to kind of fit in a lot of things into this video as little time as I need. So in this next clip, recently I heard there was some chat leaks. I didn't really care about it, but the left is trying to make a big deal out of this. So I'm gonna make a super cut right here, 2-minute super cut of all the angles that people are trying to take on this thing. And the end result is no one died. Like what was the negative ramifications for all this? Right? Democrats have people leaking ICE operations. Did the left outrage about that? No, they didn't, because it was something that they benefit, that they care about. Now you got Democrats calling for the resignation of Mike Waltz because information got leaked to a U.S. journalist that decided to leak the information out in public. Yeah, make it make sense. But I digress. Let's take a look at the clips.
I think that's actually kind of a refreshing thing for the government to say, okay, yes, effed up, we'll fix it, this won't happen again, especially when you contrast it with previous military and national security snafus in our recent history in which no one was held accountable, no one was fired, no mistakes were admitted until the very end. Joe Biden was saying Afghanistan was a success. I like it here that Donald Trump, the president, said he's a good man, but he learned a lesson. That tells me he and the president with Waltz had a hard talk.
About calling Europe pathetic.
in those messages?
Calling
Europe.
Europe.
Europe, our allies.
Our allies.
They say that publicly. I mean,
Well,
they
there
say
was
that
some. There
publicly.
was that. Oh,
Are you under any illusion that we're out here telling Europe how great they are as a public matter? There is a standoff going on right now between the president and the vice president and the leaders of Europe about what they need to be doing to secure their own countries. And by the way, they're right. They do need to step up and do more.
Look, you acknowledge the mistake, you move on. Talk about how the administration is keeping the American people safe. I just talked with Sebastian Gorka a couple days ago, National Security Advisor to the president.
That's not a flex.
No. That's not why I'm bringing it up. The point that I was going to make, though, here is we talked a lot about what the administration is doing to correct some of the errors as it pertains to national security from the previous administration. Focus on those things. That's what the American people care about. I don't think the average person cares about this past 3-4 days. We move on.
But it was referred to in this committee as the largest intelligence failure in a century. Lloyd Austin didn't report for duty. He went AWOL for a couple weeks. That was the issue. Now, it might have been because he had cancer, and that's tragic. But the fact was he went AWOL, and that's the reasons for the call
It was
to resignation.
less than 24 hours.
Excuse me, this is my time, sir. This is the hyperbole coming from the left is just amazing. In spite of the fact that my understanding an operation was discussed, my understanding is that the operation has happened. Did anyone was that operation successful? My understanding is it was. My understanding is that there were no U.S. casualties. This is very unlike Afghanistan, where we saw 13 people killed during a botched withdrawal. Let's try to get back to some sensible sort of conversation, please. Chairman, I yield back.
And Democrats, I keep running into this problem here, right? You want to criticize, you want to say all this stuff, but you guys got slammed for doing the same thing. Then you guys have WhatsApp apps and stuff going on. I remember Tulsi Gabbard had to fire a bunch of people because they were doing sexually explicit communications over government applications, over government sanctioned chats. Yet they're outraged when Tulsi Gabbard decides to fire them, but look at them. Hypocrisy. Mark Warner slams Trump's team for using Signal after his own secret messages exposed. Like, come on. Now you got Democrats exaggerating, calling it a disgrace. In 2018, the Senator Mark Weiner, who put on quite the performance today, was caught red-handed using Signal to correspond in secret with a lobbyist for Russia oligarchs. This is why I laugh when Democrats sit here and try to project that, oh, we're standing against oligarchy. No, you're trying to be an oligarchy. You're trying to create an oligarchy here, right? And if you don't believe me, I got clips for you guys. But before then, I want to go into this more in detail. Mark Wine says, we all know if a Democrat has started the group chat, there will be a wall-to-wall hearing. People will get fired. Careers will end. Today, we're starting the accountability with the open hearing in the intel community. Bro, you got 13 American soldiers killed in Afghanistan and then treated their family like garbage. And not a single person was fired or held accountable. Save the hysterics, please. And this is something I think many Americans could resonate with, because this is how the Democratic Party come across. You guys come across very hysterical, right? Hakeem Jeffries called for 0 people to be fired over this. This is when they were retreating Afghanistan. Now he wants to sign a letter to Donald Trump saying that Pete Hegseth should be fired. And one thing I could admit is humility. When you mess up, when you F up, and this is where the Democrats, they're losing. Because Donald Trump F'd up, like the Donald Trump administration F up, they immediately came forward with it. They didn't try to sugarcoat it. They didn't try to gaslight you into saying it's something else. They just say, hey, look, it's not as bad, but we understand the concern. We'll be better. It won't happen again. And we moving on. Like, I didn't even care about the story. I'm like, oh, okay, information got leaked. What's new? People have been leaking information from Donald Trump's camp for years. But all of a sudden, when it's something that they find politically expedient, now the media wants to make a big hoopla over it. When Democrats leak information or Democrats have mishandled classified information, there's no hoopla about that. Oh, they call Europe pathetic. J.D. Vance literally did that to their face. Like, come on, what are you talking about? And depending on when the timing of those messages were made, it probably happened after they did that stuff. But this is some of the stuff that irritates people about the left. The left will sit here and say, oh, we're concerned about oligarchy. when in some states, right, like California, for instance, these people operate like oligarchs. Don't believe me? Let's take a look.
Nancy Pelosi, Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris, Jerry Brown, Gavin Newsom, they're all from the same place. They're all from the same class. They're all very wealthy. They all have estates. Kevin's living in a $9 million home. Jerry's got a big Grass Valley estate. Feinstein had one of the most beautiful homes at Tahoe. Barbara Boxer's at Rancho Mirage. But their policies made sure that people where I live can't buy a house because of the regulations. It's so hard to do. Or they made sure that food is very expensive, or there's no natural gas. And because it doesn't affect them, because they have enough money that they don't really care about the rates. They can either get their income and capital gains or get right up, but they don't really worry about it. And then something like Los Angeles happens. And now that everybody's dumbfounded. Oh my God, I'm not insulated from this.
Sometimes I wonder if you guys are tired of me talking about the Democratic Party, but they keep making, like, it's so obvious once you just sit back and you just like, all right, let me get them on first principles. Let me get them on the principles of what they said. We're a country run by the oligarchy. Okay, they synonymize oligarchy with rich people. Who has rich people in their pocket? Oh, Democrats do. Oh, I didn't know that. Damn. Okay, only 2 billionaires publicly we know supports Donald Trump like that. Elon Musk and maybe Peter Thiel, who worked with Elon Musk to create PayPal. So only those two guys really support Donald Trump like that. All the other billionaires either pretend they don't support Donald Trump, or they openly support the Democratic Party, or they act like they're neutral. But majority of the rich people support the Democratic Party. The richest counties, overwhelmingly Democrat. If you look at the stats, if you make 6 figures and more, majority of people who make 6 figures and up, majority of them vote Democrat. So as your income go up, the more likely you are to be a Democratic voter. And then they wonder why the working class ran to Trump. Because your policies, as you saw from the intro from, I forgot his name, Vin. I'm sorry, I forget his name. But you saw the guy from the clip. He articulated clearly, hey, look, California, look at all these guys. They're coming from a wealthy class. They all come from the same places, right? I even showed you Jasmine Crockett, who's pretending to be a hood rat. Sorry. She came from one of the most expensive private schools in St. Louis. And I don't understand this act that she's playing. And this is something that Democrats time and time again are getting called out for. And they're not learning because they're being praised for doing this stuff. And I think Megyn Kelly and Stephen A. Smith had an interesting conversation that I want to highlight here because I think it fits the theme of this video. Let's take a look.
The fact of the matter is, whatever they were saying about MAGA right, they were no better on the left. It was embarrassing. It was a disgraceful performance. You were absolutely right when you were pointing out how they hoodwinked the public. We all knew there was slippage. And if you remember, when I called out President Biden at the time, it was a year before the debate. A year. I said, yo, something's missing. He's not there. He's not going to make it to the Democratic National.
And one thing I'd like to add is there were already polls. Like if you search up Joe Biden mentally unfit, I think since 2022, so even 2 years before, the American people already felt some type of way about Joe Biden's mental fitness for office. These were signs, clear signs. And that's what I'm saying. If you base it based on principle, right? We only care about the facts, says the leftist. Okay. In 2022, majority of Americans felt that Joe Biden was mentally unfit. And what did Joe Biden did to assuage those people's concerns? Nothing. Deflection. Pretending it doesn't exist. Try to gaslight you into saying he's mentally fit. He's sharp as a tack. Y'all remember that, Joe Scarborough? The media talked at you saying you're wrong for thinking that. They said the same thing about Joe Biden's economy. You were wrong to think that you was dealing with a recession in Joe Biden's economy. Then 2025, the Politico comes out with an article, voters were right about Joe Biden's economy because of the fact that all these revisions, all these job numbers keep getting revised. Who would have thought? People who are on the ground personally suffering from the price increases are telling you the economy is bad. But journalists and their high income earners, right? A lot of these are journalists that speak on TV. They make millions of dollars a year. I talked personally on this channel about inflation, how the more money you earn, the less likely you are to say that inflation is a concern. And if you make six figures, right? There's people making six figures. I think 46% of people making six figures are living paycheck to paycheck. So that means inflation was hurting people at the low six figures. Inflation was killing everybody. Everyone up past that, like the Bill Maher types, they didn't feel it. They're like, oh, the concerns for inflation was exaggerated. No, because of your income, you don't. It doesn't affect you the same way it affects the working class Americans, and that's the majority of America. And then you shock Pikachu face that everyone and their mom believed that Joe Biden's economy was bad because Joe Biden's economy benefited the rich. The pretend people that the Democrats pretend that they're fighting against. And this is the problem with the Democratic Party. You guys say a whole lot of things that make you look good, but when we look at your actions, the results doesn't match up what you're saying.
Convention, okay? You got to get another candidate. I was excoriated. I was raked through the coals. Who the hell is he? What does he know? Stick to sports or whatever. But look at you now, because I was right. I was right about that. I was right about Kamala. I was right about you leaning to the extreme left, woke culture, cancel culture, and all of this stuff in between. You were focusing on transgender. First of all, you didn't even focus on the LGBTQ community. You literally focused on one element of that community with transgender folks, which make up less than 1% of the population. You're talking about the borders, and it's no problem, even though even Obama himself deported more people than Trump did. And so for Biden to go completely against that, for Kamala Harris to sign off on it, there were so many elements and increments where I'm looking at the right and I'm saying I could have some problems with some of the things that they're suggesting. I could look at certain things and say, yo, I'm not vibing with that. That's not what I want for this country. But with what the left did, they were in no moral position to say anything, yet they tried to act like they were. And you know where the proof is about how sad things are, Megan? The election is over. The man has been in office for months. And they are still acting like they're on the campaign trail, spewing the same old stuff they were doing during the campaign. I think the man won every swing state, elevated his votes in the black, the Hispanic, and young voters, okay? He's increased in every possible category imaginable. He won the popular vote for the
Liberals and Democrats, I think they still believe that they can gaslight America into believing a perception that they want them to believe in. And that's not the case, man. It ain't going down that way, right? Right now, I remember the left they've been trying to gaslight us. Oh, do you regret for joining for Trump yet? You got Anna Navarro. I think I did a video of her being shocked that people are actually happy with what Trump is doing. These people, they're funny.
the first time for the Republicans since 2004, you would think they would say, man, we got to change up. Instead, they're walking around talking about there's no mandate. There's no mandate at all. I'm like, really?
Hey, man, this is how fragile the ego of the Democratic Party is, bro. That's all I got from that.
Is,
Sorry,
whatever
guys.
they were saying about.
That's all I got from that. the fragile ego of the Democratic Party, that they can't admit that, yo, you just don't have it. You just don't have it, right? And I want to just, I gotta fit a lot of information in this video. The narrative that they keep trying to project. This is why I say Democrats and liberals, you guys they do a lot of wish casting. They wish something to be the case, so they pretend that it is.
I think sometimes it's important to do a little bit of reality check and take a little different spin at the numbers. I'm going to do that right here because all we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one, and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. What are we talking about? His net favorable rating right now comes in at -4 points. Compare that to where he was when he won in November of 2024 when he was at -7 points, or March of 2017 when he was at -10 points. So when you compare Trump against himself,
one thing smart people do is they don't compare themselves to other people. They say comparison is a thief of joy. They only compare themselves to where they were in the past. In the past, Trump was -10. Last year, November 2024, when he won the election, he was -7. March 2025, he's -4. There's a trend there, but Democrats, people regret voting for Trump. Trump, when he got elected, he was -7. Now he's -4. He's improving. He's improving. He's improving, Democrats. And this is something that, this is what I'm talking about. Democrats try to get you to buy into a perception, not reality. And I think that's the number one concern that people have with the Democratic Party. Democratic Party comes across as swindlers. You trying to trick me to vote for you. That's how I personally feel as an independent.
actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom of the trough. And of course, that's so important because Donald Trump, historically speaking, has had his numbers underestimated. So I think it's very important to compare him to himself to understand he's actually more popular now than he was when he won, or certainly where he was at this point back in his first term. The bottom line is Trump is more towards the ceiling than he is towards the floor.
Killing narratives.
So when you do that, it makes my knees hurt. So when you look at this compared to sort of historically, what does it tell you about the percentage of folks that think the country itself, with him at the helm, is on the right track?
This, I think, is rather important because, again, if the polls have historically underestimated Donald Trump, what is a metric that might get at understanding at how popular he may actually be? So let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers.
But people are regretting voting for Trump. Highest since 2004. 27 said we were on the right track in November 2024. Make that make sense. See, you hear that? Democrats, everything you project, this is what I'm talking about. Every accusation is a confession. Trump is unpopular. People regret voting for Trump. I think people regret voting for Democrats. I think that's what's going on right now. I think a lot of Americans regret voting Democrat. Let me know in the comment section. I think I'm gonna end it off right here. Because you see Jasmine Crockett, you see the mess with the Democrats pretending that we're fighting against the oligarchy. They want to make hysteria over leaked information, but they were praising people leaking information. But all of a sudden, leaked information is bad now. And then when we ask, okay, what was the consequences of this leaked information? Oh, nothing. We just want to make a spectacle out of this. Oh, okay. Typical Democrat. You want to moralize about how morally superior you are. You want to act morally superior, but you just as bad as everything you say about Trump. Make it make sense. But I think a lot of people regret for voting Democrat, actually, and they're pretending not to. But, you know, I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts and your perspective on the matter. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.